All right, good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and today we have learned of a massive attack on the Sevastopol harbor down in Crimea conducted by the Ukrainians, which has destroyed some very crucial and very influential vessels in the Russian Navy. Big news to report on that, and we actually learned about most of it last night, but we have photo and video evidence today confirming that a Kilo-class submarine has been destroyed, along with a landing ship as well. Two very embarrassing defeats for Russia. And we've also learned that a third drone has entered Romanian airspace and exploded right next to a Romanian military asset. Very big deal on that one as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first news article of the day. This one is from Global Military Info, and it says it is possible that Ukraine successfully struck a Russian improved Kilo submarine and/or a landing ship at Sevastopol shipyard dry docks. And that this came out last night. And it said right here, once daylight hits, we should hopefully get confirmation. And we did get confirmation. And I just want to show y'all this video right here. This was the fire that broke out last night. As y'all can see, it was a big fire. The Russians responded pretty quickly for them, but nonetheless, they weren't able to salvage the vessels that got hit, and the harbor went up in a blaze, and it really wasn't controllable. The Ukrainians did a pretty good number on this dry dock right here. So let's see what happened to it. Here we have a photo which apparently shows the large Russian landing ship called the Minsk. As you can see, here is the top part of the ship. There's some smoke coming out of the rear of it, and you can't really see it from this view, but it has been struck by a Ukrainian drone or missile or something to that effect. And it's taken out of commission. It is no longer seaworthy, to say the least. And over here you can see the Russians who responded to the fire itself. So right now, we do see confirmation of that. The Russians have only said that two vessels got damaged. They haven't said anything about them getting destroyed or completely disabled, and they haven't mentioned which vessels got hit. This was a pretty large landing ship right here, which is a big loss on its own. But in the next post, we see here from this imagery from Black Sky, which is a satellite company which takes satellite imagery of the Earth, that here was a photo prior to the attack. If you can see this, which I really can't enlarge it any further, there is a landing ship right here on the right in the dry dock, and there appears to be a submarine right here on the left in the left side dry dock, and this was before the attack, like I said. So over here on the left, you'll see the aftermath after the attack. The landing ship is basically destroyed completely. This thing is a complete wreck. And over here, the submarine definitely has some char marks on it, and it appears to be pretty heavily damaged. I really can't determine exactly how it's damaged, but it is certainly damaged to an extent where it's not able to be in the water anymore, to put it pretty simply. But moving on to our next one here, during all of this excitement, during the attack, after we learned that the Kilo-class submarine had been basically destroyed, and the landing ship as well, we also learned that as the attack was occurring, 4 Russian soldiers were killed after they got mistakenly caught up in an incident of friendly fire. Apparently, the Russians thought that a Ukrainian sabotage team was the one doing the fires and causing explosions near the dry dock. So the Russians came into the dry dock, they saw some people standing over there, and they opened fire, and it turned out to be their own guys. So they got in a full-on firefight with each other while their ships were getting absolutely blasted and destroyed, and they ended up killing 4 of their own guys. So it was basically a Barney Fife episode going on the ground, and that's just a complete joke. I'm not even sure what else to say about that. That is peak Russian incompetency in the midst of such a drastic event taking place. They kill their own guys out of stupidity. And moving on to our next post here, we have one from Euromaidan Press. And we learned the Ukrainians destroyed yet another boat after the 2 were destroyed inside of Sevastopol harbor. And we see here Ukraine's naval forces destroy a Russian speedboat in the Black Sea. And the boat that was destroyed was this one right here in the photo, and it's called a KS-701 Tuna patrol boat. So the Tuna is no more. This thing has been blown up, destroyed, and the Russians lost this boat. Now, I will say, this one is not a big victory like the Kilo-class sub or that landing ship getting blown up, but nonetheless, Russia can't afford to keep losing ships in great quantity, and this is simply another loss that they can't afford to have. So, once again, another Ukrainian victory, albeit a smaller one, but they've had some big victories, so, you know, they've been having them. And moving on to our next post here, we're going to switch gears just a little bit to that Romania story once again. And today, like I said, we have learned that a third drone has struck Romania. This one right here crashed in the vicinity of a Romanian military objective. And like Visegrad24 points out, we have to stress this because this is a huge factor in this entire situation. Romania is an active NATO member state. It's not just a random country. This is a NATO member, which pays into NATO for security. And here they are getting hit by a third Russian drone within a week. And moving on to our next post here, we see the Romanian Prime Minister Marcel has urged the public not to worry about the drone debris in the country. And he says, quote unquote, nobody's attacking us, people. Let's calm the population. We're all going crazy, and nobody's attacking us. And I will say that it's totally up to the Romanian Prime Minister how he wants to phrase the situation, how he wants to handle it. That's his prerogative. He's in charge of his country. And, it's not up to us to tell him how to run his country. He can do it however he wants. He's elected by the people, and that is what it is. Or at least he's elected by Parliament and put there. But I will say, from a neutral perspective, not trying to tell him how to run his country, but that is a terrible approach to take because obviously, with the third drone in a week, that's no accident. You don't do 3 accidents like that in a week where you end up exploding a drone into NATO countries. That doesn't happen. It's obviously Russia testing the boundaries here to see how far they can go. And right now, Russia is getting the message from NATO that they can go as far as they want, and we're not going to do a thing about it. That is the message that is being sent right now. And if y'all recall, I actually said a while ago, I believe about 3 or 4 days ago, after the second drone attack occurred on Romania, that a third one was almost a guarantee, and probably a lot more than that. And sure enough, here we are on the third one that happened today. I hate to be right on that, but this is laughably predictable what Russia is doing here. It's nothing surprising to me, but apparently NATO is deciding to take a passive approach, which does not work with bullies. As we found out, and as everyone knows by now, Russia does not take kindly to weakness. When they see weakness, they typically like to strike. And here's what they're doing right now. So, not good whatsoever. And moving on to our next post here, we also see that Romania, in response, has begun building those air raid shelters we mentioned a few days back near the border with Ukraine. And even worse than that, they've also begun sounding air raid sirens when Russia attacks border towns in Ukraine. So, even though the Romanian Prime Minister is saying that this is nothing to be concerned about, apparently it is, or otherwise they wouldn't be building air raid shelters because they apparently expect it to happen a lot more often than it's been happening, which is what I'm saying as well. And even worse than that, they've started sounding air raid sirens, telling people to go take shelter every time there's an attack near the Ukrainian border with Romania. So, like I said in this post, this is not a war-torn country. This is Romania, an active NATO member, and it's now being attacked almost daily by Russia, and it's absolutely unbelievable. And I'm really shocked at the approach NATO is taking to this. NATO has to maintain the element of deterrence. If they don't have that, NATO is practically worthless. So it's not NATO's purpose is primarily to deter attacks from happening. It's presumed that if all the countries are willing to come and defend one of them if they're attacked, all for one, one for all, or however the saying goes. Hopefully I didn't pull a George Bush there. But if all the countries are willing to come in and defend one if it's attacked, that's deterrence. And we're losing that edge because of this approach we're taking. So moving on to our next post here, we have one from the Kyiv Post, and this confirms what I was saying about the air raid sirens getting blasted whenever there's an attack near the Ukrainian border on Romania, and they tell people to go run toward the civil defense shelters. So, this is what it is. I already talked about that enough, so I'm going to move on to our next post here, which is from Visegrad24. And we've learned that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have banned cars with Russian number plates from entering their countries. And I'm no expert on EU registration or Russian car registration or anything like that, but I would imagine there's probably an easy way around this. I'm not really sure, though. So I'll be interested to see if this actually keeps the Russians out. But they have banned them officially, so we'll have to wait and see if it actually works. And moving on to our next post here, as y'all know, Kim Jong Un has been in Vladivostok inside of Russia, speaking with Putin to negotiate an apparent arms deal because Putin is getting desperate for weapons and he's willing to negotiate with Kim. The meeting ended earlier today. It lasted about 4 hours, and since then, nothing has been reported about the results, which to me suggests that there hasn't been a deal reached, which is not really that surprising on this aspect. Obviously, it's not really an even trade because Kim is looking for advanced satellite technology while Putin is looking for cheap weapons. So it's a pretty tough sell for Kim to try to get on the table with Putin there with the deal. So it doesn't appear there's been any progress, but they may announce something maybe later today. We'll just have to wait and see. And moving on to our last post of the day, we have a post from Anton Gerashenko. And in this clip right here, Shoigu was asked whether Russia will win, and his answer was quite shocking, to say the least. I'm not sure if he's trying to be sarcastic or what, but here's what he said.
победим.
So, if you didn't catch that there, the reporter from the Russian state media asked Shoigu, I don't know where they are, by the way, they asked the guy, will Russia win the war? And Shoigu's response was to put his arms out like this. That's not a good response to give if you think you're going to win the war. And with Shoigu being on such thin ice with the Russian government, with everything that's happened in the past, he's not a very light figure anymore, even though he's still in his position. This right here is probably going to anger Putin greatly after this has gotten spread around Twitter and also the internet very prevalently today. This has been quite a meme right here at this point about the entire Russian war effort, and I'm sure that Putin is going to probably go after Shoigu for this embarrassment toward the Russian military. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but certainly a shocking answer by Shoigu right there. Probably the most honest that Shoigu's ever been in his life, if I'm being perfectly honest with that. And that is our last clip of the day. So if you would, please press the like button and subscribe as well for regular updates. And if you want to, go to our Twitter page. It's @It'sTheEnforcer on Twitter, and you can get the news as it happens minute by minute. We post everything over there throughout the day. So one more thing. If you want to support our work, we do greatly appreciate it if y'all would support the work because it helps us to make videos like this one. You can see the link in the description below for our Patreon page, and you can support us over there. So, I hope the video has been informative. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly war news stream. And bye-bye for now.